NASA's shocking discovery. A massive object 100 times the Milky Way could spell our doom. I never should have opened that door. It was just a regular Tuesday. I had my usual cup of coffee in hand, the sun peeking through my window. Life felt mundane, routine. Until the news ripped through my day like thunder. A massive object, lurking in the shadows of deep space, a dark behemoth that could swallow us whole. I shivered, that chill creeping up my spine. The world outside faded. The report echoed in my ears. 100 times the size of the Milky Way. The words haunted me. My heart raced. I remembered the darkness of last night. The strange rumbles in the distance. I thought I was just imagining it. Now it felt real. Possible. Frightening. The room around me dimmed, as if the sunlight had surrendered to the gathering storm. My eyes darted to the shadows in the corners. They seemed to dance, whispering secrets I couldn't understand. The air felt thick, like a fog that wrapped around me. Would I be swallowed too? I shook my head, trying to dismiss it. But a sound broke through the silence, a creak, deep and low, coming from my hallway. I froze. My breath quickened. I told myself it was just the house settling, but the hairs on my arms stood tall, prickling with fear. I crept closer to the sound, heart thumping louder now, each beat echoing in my ears like a war drum. Then came the whispers, soft at first, swirling around me like a frigid wind. It's coming for you. A chill shot down my spine. I pressed my back against the wall, eyes wide. Something moved in the darkness. I blinked, and there it was, a shape, the outline of a figure looming at the end of the hallway, shrouded in shadow. I couldn't breathe. My chest felt tight as the figure stepped forward. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. What was it? Was this the herald of doom from beyond our stars? Everything went blank, a snapshot of terror hanging in the air, the shape advancing. I felt my heart stop. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The silence shattered as the figure lurched forward, its movements jerky and unnatural, as if it were struggling against an unseen force. The air thickened around me as I strained to comprehend what stood before me. It wasn't just a shadow. It had shape and substance, an uncanny blend of the familiar and the grotesque, like a marionette with invisible strings. Remember me, it rasped, a voice like gravel grinding down stone. Recognition sparked at the edges of my memory, clouded by dread. Who? What was this thing? My body trembled as I took a hesitant step back, but it mirrored my movement, inching closer with each oscillating slide. The whispers intensified, wrapping around my mind, muddling my thoughts. It knows you, it knows what you did. Memories wrestled inside me, flashes of guilt and regret, desperate to break free. The neighbors' faces, warped with terror, replayed in my mind as I recalled the night of the disturbance, the lights flickering, the cries, and the shadows coiling in their homes. Had I betrayed them? Clenching my jaw, I pleaded, "What do you want?" But the figure merely stood silent, slipping deeper into the gloom, as if savoring my anguish. Each second stretched into an eternity, the air electric with terror. Suddenly, a blast of cold air whipped through the hallway. The figure froze, lifting its gnarly hands with an unearthly grace. I turned, sensing something behind me, a shadow twisting in the periphery of my vision. I didn't want to look, but an insatiable curiosity seized me. As I glanced back, the walls around me felt alive, pulsating, stretching, as though breathing in tandem with the figure. The ominous shape of a doorway unfolded along the wood paneling, one that hadn't been there before, a gaping maw leading into a darkness I had no desire to confront. From within, I could hear a distinct whisper, a cacophony of cries woven into a chilling song. I realized then that whatever this was, it wasn't a solitary entity. It had brought friends echoes of despair, twisted remnants of what once was. Panic gripped me, and I bolted toward the front door, skidding to a stop as an ear-splitting crack split the air. The figure erupted with red, glinting eyes focused and hungry, growing larger, preparing to expand and fill the entire space with dread. Instinctively, I turned to run, but the shadows lunged, seizing my ankles, entangling me in their grasp. I fell to the ground, the coldness seeping through my clothes, wrapping around my limbs. An ominous chorus of voices pried into my mind, urging me to stay, to join them in their eternal torment. No! I screamed, clawing at the floor as the figure loomed above me. It bent down, its breath hot and rancid, whispering secrets of the universe, promises of power and despair. Join us, before it's too late. Suddenly, the wall behind me buckled, splintering open like a jigsaw. A flash of haunting light poured from the unknown, illuminating the room in shades of darker than night. Within it lay countless faces, each twisted with horror and longing, their mouths opening and closing silently, as if trapped in a dimension beyond understanding. I felt their pain and desperation clawing at my sanity. I needed to escape. My heart hammered, blood rushing in my ears, drowning out the persistent whispers that mingled with my thoughts. In an instinctual move, I thrust myself forward, battling against the darkness. Something cold wrapped around my throat as the figure lunged, nearly closing its gnarled fingers around me. A sharp pain shot through my arm. Something had bitten me, a gnawed, sharp change coursing through my veins. My vision swam, spots of darkness flared at the edges. I had to get out, but then the reality shifted. The hallway collapsed in on itself, swallowing the very essence of my existence. As the shadows chewed through my resolve, the last thing I saw was the faces in the light, reaching through, just beyond my grasp, their screams echoing in my ears as darkness enveloped me whole. Then, silence. And from that silence I heard it. A new voice creeping into my mind, sweet and serpentine. Welcome, friend. We've been waiting for you. Each moment in that suffocating silence felt like an eternity. I clung to the remnants of my consciousness, struggling to process what had just happened. An overwhelming emptiness surrounded me, yet I could still feel the pulsating beat of my heart, reminding me that I was alive at least for the moment. It was a cruel jest. I was trapped between worlds, ensnared by a darkness that whispered my deepest fears. The voice lingered, curling around my thoughts like smoke. Welcome, friend. We've been waiting for you. It was laced with a familiarity that made my skin crawl. I could taste its sweetness, like poison on my tongue, and as that sensation spread through my body, it ignited a deep-seated dread, a realization spiraling through my mind. I wasn't the first to be drawn here. No. I murmured, trying to crawl backward, but my body felt leaden, as if the darkness was seeping into my very bones. Get away from me, the darkness growled in response, and a wave of torment hit me, crashing against my senses like a brutal tide. I struggled against it, catching fleeting glimpses of flickering lights and shadowed forms, often just beyond my reach. Was this my purgatory? Was I truly being absorbed into their suffering? Panic tightened its grip around my chest as I fought even harder. Let me go! I screamed, my voice nearly drowned out by the echoing wails of those trapped with me. Their faces twisted in agony, pressed against an invisible barrier, their cries merging into a symphony of despair. Some, I recognized neighbors from my old life faced with the flickering lights of their fading homes. With a sudden surge of clarity, I recalled that night, the fateful reckoning when I had unwittingly chained them to their fate. Their shadows had danced just beyond my view, lurking in the corners of my perception, but I had turned away. I had chosen to ignore their plight, hoping to save myself from the feeding panic of an approaching darkness. Help us! A voice clawed its way through the cacophony, piercing through the fog of my panic. It was a friend of mine, reduced to a mere echo of who she once was, her face flooded with a haunting recognition mingled with desperation. I tightened my fists around the ground, drawing strength from the realization. I was not alone. But the realization became a burden as the shadow took shape around me, a figure, no longer just a sinister silhouette but a gnarled, nightmarish likeness of my own form, protruding from the darkness. It laughed, a sound like the grinding of bones, and the very fibers of reality twisted under its mirth. Join Yuzel of you. It will be beautiful. Each word oozed malevolence, the promise of power laced with despair. The false image of myself began to unfurl its limbs, ushering the gathered souls forward, their faces now blending together into a grotesque parody of my own features. It was a reflection of everything I had sought to deny: the guilt, the fear, the cowardice that had chained me into this nightmare. I felt a desperate urge to scream, but the voices surged once more, rising up like a tide, dragging me deeper into the abyss. "You're one of us now!" they shrieked, echoing into infinity, and suddenly, the ground shifted beneath me, swirling with a storm of forgotten promises. Then, a flickering glimmer of hope. A darkened fissure appeared in the infinity before me, aglow with small, lancing lights beckoning me to step through. Was it an escape? Or a deeper temptation? I hovered, the precarious choice thrumming in the air around me. Choose! The dark figure roared, and my reflection revealed a mouth stretching into a chilling grin, adorned with sharp teeth, anticipation brimming in its lifeless eyes. Join us, or be lost forever. The vortex behind me pulsed, tantalizing, sending ripples of light through the air, entrancing me, urging me to surrender. My heart raced as I faced my own dark twin, witnessing the image's delight in my turmoil. I could feel the cold touch of despair wrapping around me once more, like a noose fashioned from night itself. Time warped into a singular moment as I had to decide: would I be lost in the embrace of illumination, or embraced by shadow? The choice loomed heavy, and I could feel the grasp of ethereal fingers curling around my shoulders, pulling me into the realm of the damned. As I teetered between the light and darkness, a horrifying revelation struck: what if whatever lay beyond was worse than what I faced? In an electrifying moment of clarity, I lunged forward, reaching for the fissure, when a scream broke through the darkness, resonating in my very soul. "Don't look back!" And in that moment of terror, I stumbled, falling into the light. But just as I thought I had escaped, tendrils of darkness shot out, wrapping around my legs, anchoring me back in place. I was torn, and snared between dual worlds, gripped by their impossibly fierce pull, while in the distance, the laughter echoed, swirling into a storm of chaos. The figure loomed closer, its voice a deadly whisper: "You'll never leave us. You are ours." And with that, everything shattered. The nightmare fractured, plunging me into an expansive abyss where the boundaries of existence blurred. I drifted, feet still grasped within the shadow's vice-like grip, but the light began to flicker. The laughter faded, replaced by the sound of crashing waves, merging into whispers that ensnared my mind. "Save yourself," the voices murmured, a chorus of my past haunting me. Images surged, colliding with the present. The faces of those lost flickered and faded like dying embers. But nestled beneath the anguish lay something darker: an insatiable hunger for recognition, revenge. "You left us," they whispered. "You cannot escape. We won't let you." Suddenly, the ground beneath my legs burst into a morass of darkness, the shadows coiling and unraveling as they leaped into the ethereal depths around me. I was ripped from my tethers, spiraling downwards through an endless void. There was no sound, no air, just the suffocating weight of despair pressing onto my chest until it felt like my heart would implode. Just as the world seemed to dissolve entirely, I landed with a bone-jarring thud on solid ground. I gasped, struggling to fill my lungs with air, only to realize I lay upon a sinister mosaic of shifting faces, tender smiles twisted into grotesque snarls. Each once warm visage now wore a mask of anguish, their mouths open in silent screams, trapped in an eternal cycle of horror. I scrambled to my feet, yet they seemed to pulse under my weight, like a human carpet of misery that throbbed with the rhythm of time. Panic surged high, the realization hitting me anew. I had entered an even darker realm, where sorrow suffocated hope and regret bled into every broken heart. I staggered forward, desperate to escape the weight of the past that threatened to drag me back into the abyss. "No more! I won't be one of you!" I howled, but the shadows crept closer, their energy electric with malice. "Why did you forget us?" The question mingled in the air like poison. It was a voice I recognized, a heavy sorrow echoing from the figure of a man who stood hunched, partially obscured by the writhing shadows. The flickering light revealed his face, and my breath caught in my throat. It was Ben, my childhood friend, lost in that fateful accident, the one I had buried in my memories. "No, Ben!" I cried, reaching out for him, but the shadows swirled, wrapping around his form, distorting him even as he reached toward me with spectral hands. His eyes were filled with agony, haunted by the betrayal of our last encounter, the uncrossed boundaries of guilt. "Help me!" he rasped, his voice mingling with the cacophony. "You left me behind. Do you even understand what you've done?" "I'm sorry!" I didn't mean I wanted to scream, but my own voice was drowned out by the wailing souls that surrounded me. It wasn't just Ben, but a sea of familiar faces, the memories of those I'd tried to forget, each bound by their own pain, all looking to me with accusing stares. The mosaic quaked beneath my grip, the agony of the collective rage intensifying. I felt the heat of their despair boiling over, sending tendrils of panic racing up my spine. "You have to fix this. Set us free." Suddenly, the shadows beneath my feet twisted violently, seething with a life of their own. "They will never forgive you," a guttural voice hissed, echoing from the very depths of the nightmare. "You have been weighed and found wanting." The ground trembled, cracking, revealing chasms of darkness ready to swallow me whole. I stumbled backward, the darkness swirling forth like an angry storm. I turned to flee, my heart pounding, realizing just how isolated I truly was, alone among the souls I had wronged, the denizens of a hell born from my negligence and fear. "Join us, and you'll know the truth," they cried, their voices rising in a symphonic crescendo, overwhelming my senses. The shadows coalesced, swelling into a titanic figure that towered over me, own reflection, grotesque and twisted, urging me to embrace the very darkness I had sought to escape. "Choose," it drawled, its grin stretching impossibly wide, revealing rows of jagged teeth that glimmered with malice. As I turned, a chilling scream pierced through the air, a soul caught in a vice of torment, and amid the chaos, a vision manifested, a glimpse of what lay beyond my horror. A somber light flickered just ahead, promising salvation. But just as quickly, the shadows erupted, lunging at me with unerring precision. I reached for the distant illumination. "I want to become one of you!" I roared, but as I did, a hand shot out from the darkness, its grip cold and fierce, wrapping around my wrists like barbed wire. The figure of Ben loomed closer, whispering my name, the very essence of despair clawing at my mind. "You can't escape. You must face your sins." The world spun around me, and just as I felt the light wane, the shadows drew taut, and I was ripped between existence and oblivion. And as the screams crescendoed to a deafening roar, I was thrust forward, back towards the light, only for the terror to claw its way deep into my soul, and I could only cry in futile horror, "I'm coming." The light blinked out. The silence that followed was overwhelming, a stillness that pressed against my chest, squeezing the breath from my lungs. I was engulfed by a void, one that stretched infinitely in all directions. Light flickered in and out, resembling the distant stars of the very universe that had abandoned me. I fought against the oppressive darkness that sought to swallow me, hope tethered to the faint memory of that flickering illumination. But the reprieve was fleeting. In an instant I was hurled through a maelstrom of whirling whispers that crashed into my consciousness. The ceaseless tide of despair closed in, and dread sank its claws into the very marrow of my being. I could feel them, all the souls, the spirits tethered by their grief, their rage, their yearning. They spiraled into me, wisps of shadow threading through my skin. "Face your past." A chorus howled, their voices merging into a singular, sunken lament. Dark shapes flickered at the edge of my vision, and with each pulse of understanding, I saw the swirling vortex of memories fraught with my failings. The laughter of friends long gone echoed tauntingly, jarring me to places I had buried in silence. A birthday party where I had chosen a different friend to play with. The last words whispered in anger, the doors slammed, the distance created. "Free us!" they screamed, and I felt an overwhelming maelstrom wrap around my heart. Each cry slashed through me, carving open wounds anew. The pulsating pain rippled outward, merging into a barrage of images me choices, my negligence the patterns of suffering that knitted our fates into an unbreakable tapestry of tragedy. No. I bellowed against the cacophony, surging forward on shaky legs, desperate to escape this prison of recollection. But my body resisted, heavy and immovable, as if it were another prisoner in this purgatory. Dark figures darted in and out of my peripheral vision, their misaligned shadows stretching and reforming, mirroring my unraveling sanity. A heavy weight loomed over me, a familiar silhouette solidifying from the gloom. You cannot run from what you've done, it rumbled, echoing with a resonance only the darkest parts of my mind could create. Every step I took only amplified the sense of dread, each whisper sending jolts of ice through my veins, as horrors from my past clawed back into the forefront of my thoughts. Let me go, I cried, hands clawing at the emptiness around me, desperate for an escape that I knew was impossible. The shadows seethed with a malevolent glee, drawing ever closer, their presence a suffocating web. I could hear the frantic spirals of cries morphing into words, names, images. Marla, Jason, Laura. The memories whispered through the hollow void. Can you save them? One voice echoed, full of mirthful malice. Or will you let them fall into the abyss? Each name sharpened with resentment, a cutting reminder of the guilt that suffocated me. They're waiting, and so shall you. From the dark, Ben's visage returned, his face merging with the collective of anguished souls. I reached for him, desperate to pull him out of the depths. Please, I can fix this. It'll set you all free, he smiled sadly, but his eyes burned with a truth I had long sought to escape. You are the reason we're here. You embody our pain. You'll never be free of us until you confront the reality of your betrayals. I hurled backward, swept away by a tide of shadows that gripped my throat in an iron clasp. An immense darkness folded in on itself, writhing around me like a serpent, squeezing tighter with every pulse of my heartbeat, driving the memories deeper into my psyche. Moments where I had turned away. Alone, where it mattered most. Help us, or you will become like USA Soul, adrift and forever lost, they warned, voices tearing at my mind until I felt ready to shatter. The very ground trembled beneath my feet, splitting open to reveal a chasm of swirling dark. It yawned wide, greedy and relentless, promising eternal torment. I turned my gaze upwards, and in the furthest reaches of the dark, a tiny sliver of light emerged, a flickering beacon of hope against the onslaught. They'll fight, I whispered, desperate against the odds. But something vile manifested above me, a swirling whirlwind of grief, anger, and resentment, a tempest stitched from the very fabric of my failures. I strained against the darkness, reaching toward the light, a last desperate act, but as I did, the malevolent force lashed out, slashing the bridge between me and salvation. The abyss trembled, and the shadows converged, their many faces merging together into a tsunami that surged toward me, an inescapable tide of anguish and rage. Choose, suffer, or become one with your fears. Then the floor collapsed beneath me. I plummeted into the void, darkness swallowing me whole as I screamed, only to be met with silence once more. In the depths of that silence, a whisper slithered through the void, a voice I knew all too well. I am still waiting for you. The weight of the void was suffocating, a thick layer of despair wrapping around me like a cold, damp shroud. My body, feeling as though it had been stretched thin, swayed at an impossible angle, suspended in a realm without end. I could sense my mind fraying at the edges, the whispers around me distorting like the flickering of a broken film reel. Suddenly, the silence shattered with the shrieking of tortured souls, rising and falling like the tide, their anguish seeping into my consciousness. I was submerged in despair deeper than the chasm I had fallen from, where every lingering presence clawed at my skin, a sensation akin to flesh-tearing nails scraping against bone. Look closer! A voice croaked out, rasping from somewhere within the swirling darkness. I squinted, pushing against the suffocating fog, straining to decipher the source of the cacophony. Gradually, images began to materialize, ghostly apparitions swirling above me like some macabre ballet. Faces twisted in anguish stared down, pulling me deeper into their torment, their eyes hollow yet imploring. I was encircled by a gaunt, hollow figure that seemed to emerge directly from the depths of my traumas. It wore a frantic expression that flickered with unmistakable recognition. Marla. You left me. You promised. She cried, her voice an eerie echo of our last encounter, just before the fateful day that seared her memory into my very soul. You could have saved me. I tried. I did. I screamed back, my throat raw. I never intended for anything to happen. I thought the sorrow in her eyes faded into a mask of disgust, and she turned, arms outstretched. Thought? They'll always wait until it's too late, she hissed, and the shadows clung to her body, demanding more victims. I would become one with them, just as she had, unless I found a way to escape this nightmare. Panic surged through me, pushing against the suffocating layers of despair, and in that rush, I caught sight of fragments, memories that I hadn't witnessed before, the children's laughter echoing through the darkness, their faces hidden behind a veil of shadows, their spectral giggles taunting my relentless guilt. I curled into myself, squeezing my eyes shut. Stop it! You're dead. My voice cracked, but I pressed on. I'm not here to suffer alongside you. I wish to be freed. Then you must choose. A new voice slithered into my thoughts, deep and reverberating, seemingly coming from above, looming like a thunderhead in the tempest. Or become one of us. As if prompted by that dreadful command, the shadows erupted in a chaos of faces and limbs, a tempest of sights so overwhelming that my mind threatened to fracture. I was surrounded on all sides by figures pleading with me, some weeping, others screaming in anger, weaving their tales of despair. Each flickered in and out like pages torn from a haunting novel. Suddenly, the air shifted, the shadows drawing back like a curtain, and a new figure took center stage, a silhouette emerging from the depths bathed in a pale, phosphorescent light. My breath caught in my throat. Ben. The anguish painted across his features was a sight I had not witnessed in years, but it carried a familiarity that resounded in my heart. How could he be here, just when I needed him the most? Face what you've created, he urged, his voice resonating with sorrow and rebuke. You must confront them all. They need closure, just as you do. But how? I asked, my voice trembling. How can I make this right? He stepped closer, the glow illuminating the figures locked in their own torment behind him, shadows still writhing but stilled for a moment. You have the power, Ben whispered, his hand extended, beckoning me forward. Look at them. They are you, they need you to heal. I found myself doing just that, looking into their eyes, feeling their pain. Each tear they shed carved scars into my own heart, raw and undeniable. I couldn't bear the weight, but as I peered deeper, I felt the darkness ripple with anger, protesting my awakening. No! Howled the voices, a unified roar that seeped through the very fabric of this place. Let us go! And in that instant, the ground beneath my feet began to shudder violently. The shadows screeched, morphing into grotesque forms that lunged towards me, their features twisting into horrifying masks of despair and anger, their onslaught relentless. Feel the consequences. They bellowed in a cacophonous swell, and suddenly, the ground split wide open once again, revealing an even more profound abyss underneath, bubbling and boiling like a cauldron of fury. Join us! They cried, a greedy invitation that felt like the last swing of a pendulum, the final temptation before all-consuming despair arrived, dragging me down with it. Ben remained motionless, his expression pleading, leaving me with an impossible choice. But as the shadows clamored into a frenzy, I heard the ultimatum that twisted painfully within me, a dark promise threatening to consume my very essence. In an act of desperation, I lunged towards Ben, but the ground collapsed beneath him as well. No! I screamed, and in a flash, reality warped, shifting around us, swallowing Ben and the spectral figures into the chaotic void. With the whispers surging, clawing at my sanity, I was left teetering on the precipice between choice and damnation. Beneath the chaos, darkness approached, the relentless tide threatening to strip me of every last semblance of sanity. And then, a heartbeat, but was it mine? Help me, it beckoned, more a command than a plea, reverberating through the darkness like a kickback of raw emotion. The abyss shifted, and something cold, clawed, and tangible shot up from its depths, wrapping around my ankle, pulling me back. I looked down in horror, realizing the darkness was very much alive, and it wanted to claim me as its own. Help me, help me, help me, echoed the heartbeat, and with that, the shadows surged upward, ready to drag me under in their eternal embrace. I had no choice. The pulse was quickening, and with each throb came the echo of a distorted heartbeat, synchronized with the menacing grasp of the darkness. My mind screamed for clarity, for logic, but every attempt to grasp at sense only deepened my descent into chaos. The figure behind me, Ben's ghostly visage, began to dissolve, a spectral mist dissipating into nothingness, swallowed whole by the swirling tendrils of sorrow and rage. That I staggered backward, the icy fingers of the void tightening around my legs, a weight dragging me downward. I won't give in! I shouted, feeling an ember of defiance flare within the depths of terror. It was small, but it flickered with life, urging me to fight against the gnashing jaws of despair. Choose! The shadows roared, their voices punctuated by shrieks that surged forth like the crack of thunder, each sound unraveling my thoughts further. Surrender or perish. You cannot exist between realms, you must let go. I switched my gaze wildly between the gaping abyss below and the faces rising around me. Some were familiar, those who lingered in my mind, the children from that tragic day, their laughter now a haunting melody seeping through my thoughts. They were blurring, merging with the shadows that encircled me, all fueled by the guilt that seeped into my soul like poison. God, I'm so sorry! I cried out, tears stinging my eyes, mixing with the darkness that was suffocating me. I didn't want this. I never thought. Their faces twisted with anguish and fury, the cacophony of their resentment growing louder, threatening to drown out my cries. You abandoned us! They screamed in unison, their voices an orchestra of wrath that echoed across the void, reverberating through my body. You can't escape what you did, the shadows surged again, a black tide rising in protest of my pleas. The voices pressed in, drowning out all coherent thought. Join us. Let the weight of your choices free you. It was hypnotic, a sinister lullaby beckoning me to relinquish my struggles, to succumb to the burdens born of my past. No! I refuse! I howled defiantly. Yet a wave of sensation washed over me, that familiar sickening sense of despair clawing at my core. Among the shadows, I glimpsed Marla once more, her haunting face twisting into a visage of pure malice. You still have a chance, she spat, every word dripping with disdain. But with it comes a sacrifice. In that moment, the pulsing heartbeat became something tangible, rolling through the darkness like a beast waiting to rise. It felt alive and hungry. It thrummed with ferocity, resonating against the tumultuous shadows, urging me closer as the darkness writhed, frothing at the edges, eager to consume my anguish. Choose, now! It thundered as the echo swelled, the abyss below capering in anticipation. What will you give us to escape? The shadows receded slightly, creating a small space between their clawing fingers, revealing just for a moment a glimpse of the world beyond. Light spilled through the crack, warm and inviting, contrasting sharply against the suffocating cold of despair. A wordless plea echoed from it, instinctively calling me home, a stark reminder of everything I had lost. Behind the light, Ben's face emerged, a shimmering silhouette of hope and longing. Find the courage, he urged, his voice battling the shadows yet deeply strained. Do not give in to their betrayal. You can save them. You must forgive yourself first. Forgive myself? The thought struck me like a lightning bolt. I had been carrying the weight of my guilt, shackling my soul to the past, preventing healing and moving forward. But was I ready to confront the reality I had fought so hard to escape? The ground began to tremor beneath me again. The darkness was rising, relentless. The shadows hesitated, sensing my wavering resolve. A choice loomed like a specter, evoking raw emotion within, an offer straddling the thin line between salvation and destruction. With one last glance at the swirling chaos, I shut my eyes tightly, gathering every ounce of bravery in my trembling heart. I will not abandon you, I whispered into the maelstrom, a soft rebellion against the overwhelming tide. I will face what lies beneath. The ground split wider, and suddenly I was falling not into the void, but into the memories of the past, a swirling, unbearable mass of those I had failed. Faces flashed before my eyes in rapid succession, Marla smiling, the children laughing, each visage caught in a moment of clarity amidst the darkness that held them bound. Just as I thought I might drown in the pain of those memories, a light broke through the fading echo of a heartbeat commanding attention. I reached toward it, desperate. "It'll find you. It'll find a way." But just as I grasped at what seemed like hope, the dark tide surged upward violently, engulfing me in an abyss of screams. And then silence. I opened my eyes, at least I thought I had, only to find myself on the precipice of a vast nothingness, an endless void with no escape. The heartbeat resonated louder, faster, sinking with the panic rising within. I need help. But as the darkness clouded my vision, I realized there was a stranger in the shadows, eyes glowing like embers in the night, staring intently at me. "Welcome home," it whispered, and my blood ran cold, realizing this was not the sinister scorn of the past but something far older, far more terrifying than I could ever imagine, and in that moment, the heartbeat stopped. The silence enveloped me, thick and suffocating like a shroud spun from the very fabric of despair. I stood on the edge of that endless void, where time felt both infinite and painfully brief, as if the universe had paused to watch my fate unfold. The realization of the presence lingering in the shadows gnawed at me, each heartbeat echoing its unnatural rhythm deep within my chest. "Who are you?" I managed to stammer, feeling a cold sweat dribble down my back, pooling at the small of my spine. The glowing eyes shifted slightly, the ember-like glimmers narrowing, a predatory gaze assessing its prey. "Not who," it cooed, an oily voice that slithered through the void like a serpent. "What?" "I am the manifestation of everything you run from, everything you fear." The eyes blinked slowly, as if savoring my mounting dread. "Why are you here?" My breast turned shallow, each inhale filling my lungs with the acrid taste of pure terror. I could barely keep myself upright, swaying uncertainly as the dread pooled like lead in my stomach. "To serve as a reminder," it replied, its voice slithering ever closer, weaving through the darkness around me. "You are never alone in your suffering. I am your guilt, your grief, and your malice. I am everything you refuse to acknowledge." A shadow cloaked over me, its shape shifting and writhing like tar. I could almost detect the whispers of the damned within its coterminous depths, memories, the faces of those I had lost, echoing pleas and accusations stirring the air around me. My heart raced as I pressed my palms against my temples, trying to fend off the tide of voices threatening to consume me. "You cannot escape the truth," the creature hissed, the shadows around it fluttering like moths to a flame. "You think you can confront forgiveness? Do you truly believe you can face what you buried so deep, you've forgotten it exists?" From the darkness, I felt a heat rise, a painful pull toward the memories entwined with my deepest shame. I was back in that moment, the one day I wished to erase, the accident that shattered the lives of countless innocents. As the landscape of my guilt unfurled before me, I was struck by their faces, frozen into me, a terrifying gallery of sorrow. "I know, I know!" I screamed, flailing desperately against the malicious grip of my own mind. "I'm sorry! I can't undo it." "Ah, but intent differs from consequence," the creature crooned, its head tilting in mock sympathy. "You carry the burden of every choice denied to them. They shall never grow, never laugh, never heal because of you." The void shimmered, and suddenly I was standing in a dimly lit room, the walls capering with jagged shadows, flickering with a surreal glow. I squinted into the depths, recognizing the sterile decor, a hospital room, sterile and foreign, but familiar. The smell of antiseptic hung heavy in the air, inducing nausea with every breath. And then I glimpsed the patients confined within their beds, lost souls who bore witness to the harm they had suffered. Children whose dreams evaporated into the ether, replaced by anguish and resentment, their faces twisted with pain and longing. I staggered back, a sharp cry bubbling to my lips, mind racing. "No! I didn't do this, I couldn't? Or wouldn't?" the creature taunted, the shadows dancing around its grotesque form like a tapestry of suffering. "You alone bear the curse of their existence, a living graveyard of moments stripped of all joy." The weight of the knowledge crashed down, suffocating me as I felt the room close in. I began to see the truth of my past, the fracture that had spiraled into this nightmarish abyss. This fate was birthed from my own sins, intertwined with the very fabric of my being, an inescapable stain. This isn't real! I shouted in defiance, though terror coiled tighter in my chest. You're nothing but a figment. I won't let you control me. The creature laughed, a haunting sound, echoing through the chamber with cruel mirth. But I am your reality. Unshackle yourself from the illusion of denial. Embrace the truths hidden beneath your facade, and in that moment of revelation, I felt the edges of the room dissolve. The patients were replaced with more echoing specters dead I had failed to save, fleshing out the room until it weighed heavily with their grief. The whispers grew louder, a tempest of accusation crashing around me. Face us! They cried, the shadows swirling in a violent rage, the air thickening with their sorrow. I can't! I pleaded, clasping my hands against my ears, desperate to block them out. I want to forget, I want to be free. Freedom comes at a price, the creature hissed, its ember eyes a furnace of malevolence. Will you sacrifice the truth for a fleeting escape? At that moment, the hospital room shattered, collapsing around me into shards of glass and memories, fragmented pieces flying in every direction. I spun around as I felt myself being pulled deeper into the maw of the darkness, the terrible faces morphing and intertwining with the shadows, fusing into one monstrous entity of agony, slithering toward me. You must choose! It shrieked, echoing the pulsating heartbeat now thrumming wildly, accelerating into a frenzy that resonated within my very soul. The light I had longed for flickered behind the encroaching darkness, the warm glow now a distant star swallowed by an encroaching storm. As the darkness lunged forward to envelop me completely, everything went still. The heartbeat was deafening, aching and then stopped entirely, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. But as the shadows coiled around me, I realized I was not alone. A hand cold and firm seized my wrist, wrenching me backward into the clutches of the abyss. Join us! Or be consumed! It growled, the weight of countless souls urging me to embrace whatever horrors lay ahead. And in that moment of despair, I felt the last whisper of hope slip away, replaced with a palpable fear of the future. Dark tendrils closing in, a cacophony of voices emerging as one resounding scream. And then the ground rumbled beneath us, fissures breaking apart as the darkness gnawed its way closer, ready to swallow me whole. Panic raced through me as I was tugged deeper into the void, darkness spinning around me like a whirlpool, drawing me into its depths. The icy grip of the spectral hand tightened, sending jolts of agony through my arm. My surroundings morphed. I glimpsed the flickering shimmer of warped memories swirling in a chaotic dance. The faces of those who had suffered mirrored my own tangled emotions. Let go! I screamed, twisting my wrist, but the grip only tightened, like a vice tightening with every desperate thought I cast. Each second dragged agonizingly, as I felt the weight of countless souls surrounding me, their mournful faces dissolving into a cacophony of wailing sorrow that reverberated within the fabric of my mind. Do you truly believe you can evade the reckoning? The creature's voice echoed, a serrated whisper slicing through my desperation. You beckoned them here, unwittingly summoned every inflection of their suffering. You cannot run from what you conjured. You cannot silence the haunting truth they carry. As if conjured by its words, the shadows surged forth, cascading layers of grief coiling around me. I was thrust into a cavernous void. The ground beneath my feet cracked and crumbled into an infinite depth, exposing layers of despair I had tried so hard to bury. Suddenly, ghostly figures emerged, each bearing the burden of their own tragedies, and their eyes bore into me a testament to the suffering I once thought peripheral, now laser-focused upon me. Help us! A child's voice cried, echoing around the cavern, fragile and haunting, and I instinctively recoiled at the intensity of their plea. The figure darted toward me, skeletal hands reaching out, the longing palpable. My heart thudded painfully in my chest as I recognized the child, the boy from the accident, the one I had failed to save. No! I can't! I recoiled, the weight of guilt crashing over me like a mighty wave. The boy's face flickered, twisted by torment, morphing into countless other cries for help. Faces I recognized, memories of friends, strangers, and families whose lives had been irrevocably marred by my negligence. Your silence hollers louder than their screams. The creature taunted as I fell to my knees, my soul unraveling under the weight of their gaze. You wanted to forget, but they are etched into your being, each cry, each sacrificial reminder of your scars. Will you continue to ignore their pleas? Will you condemn yourself to eternal solitude in this darkness? My throat burned with the effort to scream, the maelstrom of memories spiraling wildly around me, each breath a dagger lodged deeper within my chest. In this abyss, I found no refuge. Every promise of solace was but a mirage, teasing me with relinquished freedom. Suddenly, an ominous rumble reverberated through the void, shaking its very foundations. Before me, a shadowed fissure slowly divided the realm, revealing glimmers of movement on the other side, figures drowning in shadows that crept toward me, drawn by an insatiable hunger. Their faces were hazy, indistinguishable, yet the weight of their collective desires bore down on my senses with blinding clarity, the longing for retribution. Stand with us or be consumed. They chanted, a terrifying symphony of voices crashing together in a haunting dissonance. I froze, grasping the ephemeral echoes of my shattered conscience, feeling them claw desperately at my mind, challenging me to engage in a struggle far beyond my fragile acceptance. The walls of the chasm collapsed further, and I felt the ground beneath me shift, sealing my fate. I could fly to the edges of that void or plunge willingly into the abyss, but freedom from the horror demanded a choice that felt insurmountable. As the shadows drew near, an abysmal roar echoed through the darkness, ripping through the cacophony of despair. It felt like the very essence of anguish and desperation, resonating with a ferocity that shook the foundation of my very being. Choose! The creature barked, its mocking laughter spiraling into rage, overrunning my senses with a violent dread that charged the air like static before a storm. The time of reckoning is upon you. My heart thrummed painfully as the weight of existence compressed around me, a final chance for redemption or acceptance of doom. I glanced at the cultish form of the boy amid the shadows, his eyes pleading for salvation, and the moment froze in my Minda tableau, edging on the brink of oblivion. But before I could grasp the implications of my decision, a fracture fissured through the world, and I felt myself slipping, plummeting into darkness as the shadows erupted into chaos, their desperate cries piercing through the veil of silence. And as the echoes of despair engulfed me, the last vestiges of hope whispered in unmistakable resonation of dread spiraled out, leaving me with a world of shattered memories and despair on the edge of transcendence. What they yearned for was more than mere justice. It was vengeance, and I stood teetering at the crossroads of fate. Join us! A haunting wail cried, collapsing the very fibers of reality around me as I fell, the haunting faces reaching up toward me, a promise of salvation or doom that abandoned logic, heart racing as the darkness loomed over me like a beast ready to devour its prey. And as I surrendered to the chaos, the ground beneath crumbled away entirely, spiraling into a void of nothingness wrapped in the screams of the forsaken. I lay there suspended in that suffocating void, weightless and yet burdened by the gravity of my own sins. The darkness pulsed around me, throbbing in rhythm with the heartbeat that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere all at once. I could hear the whisperous chorus of anguish that caressed my mind like a lover's betrayal. It seeped into my thoughts, entangling my sanity, and I realized the reality of my situation. I was surrounded by the very souls I had failed, flailing helplessly while I drifted toward an unseen horizon. Your consequences awaiting, the creature cooed, its voice like fog rolling in to obscure the light. You wish to face your past? Then let them show you. One by one, the shadows shifted around me, morphing into familiar forms. I recognized the faces of those I had tried so brutally to forget. The laughter mingled with screams, and their eyes shone with a hollow light that pierced through my heart. Marla was there, her once bright smile reduced to a grimace of betrayal. Jason, too, his kind, trusting nature twisted into one of anger and despair. Each of them represented a flickering memory, each one woven into the very fabric of my being, wrapped in guilt and sorrow. You abandoned us, they chanted, voices swelling like a rising tide. You left us to face the darkness without you. I stumbled, desperate to escape their accusing stares, wide and filled with agony. No! I tried. I never meant to. But the cacophony swallowed my words, drowning me in their grief. As I fell further into that darkened chasm, I understood then that this was no mere punishment. It was an immersion into my own guilt, a purgatory constructed from the silence I had chosen over their cries for help. Look closer, the creature beckoned, its ember-like eyes flickering in the dark. Look into their eyes and understand how deep your betrayal runs. The void around me quivered, and as I gazed into the faces of those I had wronged, I felt a shift. What I once perceived as anguish morphed into something else, an awakening, a realization. Their eyes held more than anger. They contained longing, pain, and a desperate plea for absolution. They needed recognition of the truth of my actions and omissions. If I never faced the reality, they would remain forever locked within this dark dimension, an echo chamber for my regrets. Why should we forgive you? Marla's voice cut through the veil of sorrow, more a challenge than a question. You shut the door and turned away when we needed you most. Her words struck deep, igniting a fire of shame. I was a coward, unable to confront the horrors of that day, the moment choices made in fear had ripped lives apart. What should I do? I cried out, my heart racing, a war between my desire for redemption and the shadows clinging to me. Make a choice. The creature howled, a triumphant roar echoing through the void. Surrender to your darkness, or fight for their truth. The shadows coalesced, enveloping me in whispers and shadows, threatening to swallow me whole. My breath caught in my throat, the weight of their judgment pressing onto my chest. But in that towering chaos, I glimpsed a flicker of light, a distant star among the abyss representing hope, connection, redemption. Marla! I called, my voice strained but determined. I won't abandon you. I will face what I did. My pledge sent shockwaves through the shadows, and their furious wails crescendoed, battling against the thought of my resolve. In that instant, the figures began to dissolve into tendrils of dark smoke, reaching out to me as if to pull me back into the pit of despair. You cannot change what has occurred. Jason's voice cried, blending with the shadows, you cannot erase us. But their words faltered before the fierce determination igniting within me. I don't need to erase you. I need to honor you. I shouted, each word fueled by the fire of my conviction, burning against the cold grasp of despair. I will carry each of you in my heart. I will face every moment of pain I caused, and I will not let it bind me any more. A wave surged through the darkness, rippling like water. Disturbed by a stone. The shadows twisted around me suddenly. Light burst forth, blinding in its brilliance, enveloping the figures to my sides. They morphed into graceful shapes, their edges softening, finally at peace. You must remember us, they urged, the pain in their voices replaced with a desperate hope. We are not gone, we can still find our way in these memories together. Realization crashed over me like a tidal wave, and with it came clarity. Facing the truth of who I was, the good and the bad, the hero and the coward, was the key to breaking this cycle of devastation. The darkness receded, a frayed tapestry of shadows unraveling as I broke free from its suffocating grasp. I will not forget, I declared into the void, and as I expressed that truth, a surge of warmth spread through my chest. You are my pain, my lesson, and my resilience. Together, we will not be lost. The creature that had preyed upon my fears felt the shift, recoiling, its ember eyes narrowing in furious disbelief. You think you can escape me? I am the abyss embedded in your soul, but I stood tall, removing the weight of guilt from my back. No longer. The shadows hissed angrily, twisting and howling, forming whirlwinds of despair. Yet from within that chaos, light glimmered soft, inviting, full of possibility, swelling forth until it overpowered the darkness entirely. As it consumed the malevolent force, I felt each tether of guilt gradually dissolve. No more will I succumb to you. You will not dictate my worth. I was enveloped, illuminated, and suddenly, I could see them, the faces of those I had wronged, illuminated, glowing with relief and happiness, fading into the light, freed from the torment that bound them. Thank you, Marla's gentle whisper lingered, her form dissipating into a warm embrace. The last cords of darkness shrunk, and with a final breath of love, I released the shackles of my past. The void morphed, reshaping itself into an expanse of swirling light, a cosmos unmarred by despair. The weight upon my heart lifted, leaving a rhythm of hope in its place. But as I began to float away toward the calming brightness, a voice echoed low and deep a warning amidst the serenity. You think you have triumphed? The shadows are not vanquished. They will find their way back. And in that chilling proclamation, I understood, horror creeping back like smoke curling in the night, that the battle was never truly finished. No matter how far I soared, the remnants of the abyss lingered, waiting for my moments of weakness to show themselves. In that moment, as I finally crossed the threshold towards the light, doubt crept in, and dread settled in my bones, a whisper ensnared in the beckoning glow, echoing endlessly through the silence of my mind. But I had made choices. I would not turn away again, and as the light enveloped me, a final whisper taunted me from the depths. You can run, but you'll never escape, for the darkness lingers, forever pursuing, an echo waiting for just the right moment to return.